Welcome to our group presentation of Case Enron. Our group members consist of Nithya Prakash Analaki Ganesan, Nur Munira Sakina binti Nazri, Hamsavani anak perempuan Andersen, myself Cynthia Darshni, Nur Filza Fakriya binti Razali, and Nurul Balkis binti Muhammad Amin.
About Arthur Andersen. For more than a half-century, Arthur Andersen, co-founded as Andersen, Delaney and Co. in 1913 by Arthur E. Andersen, was primarily an auditing firm focused on providing high-quality standardized audits. But a shift in emphasis during the 1970s pitted a new generation of auditors advocating for clients and consulting fees against traditional auditors demanding more complex auditing techniques. The problem worsened when the company's consulting division began generating significantly higher profits per employee than the auditing division. Auditing revenues had flattened, and growth came primarily through consulting fees. Formerly one of the big five accounting firms, by 2001 it had become one of the world's largest multinational corporations. During the last decade of the partnership's life, auditors at several regional offices failed to detect, ignored, or approved accounting frauds for large clients paying lucrative consulting fees, including Enron Corporation and WorldCom Incorporated. In 2002, the partnership was found guilty of obstruction of justice for destroying documents related to the Enron audit, a decision later unanimously overturned by the United States Supreme Court. Despite this, the damage to Andersen's reputation was so great that it has never returned as a viable business, even on a limited scale.
A very good morning to Doctor. My name is Nithya Prakash, son of Ganesan, and my matrix number is A174001. I will be speaking about history of Enron. Enron was founded in 1985 by Kenneth Lay in the merge of two natural gas transmission companies, Houston Natural Gas Corporation and Internorth Incorporated. Later, the company was renamed as Enron in 1986. Enron transformed itself into a trader of energy derivative contracts, acting as an intermediary between natural gas producers and their customers. Trades allow the producers to mitigate the risk of energy price fluctuations by fixing the selling price of their products through a contract negotiated by Enron for a fee. Under Skilling's leadership, Enron soon dominated the market of natural gas contracts, and the company started to generate huge profits on its trades. The bull market of the 1990s helped to fuel Enron's ambitions and contributed to its rapid growth. There were deals to be made everywhere, and the company was ready to create a market for anything that anyone was willing to trade. It thus traded derivative contracts for a wide variety of commodities including electricity, coal, paper, steel, and even for the weather. An online trading division, Enron Online, was launched during the dot-com boom, and by 2001 it was executing online trades worth about $2.5 billion a day. Enron also invested in building a broadband telecommunications network to facilitate high-speed trading.
Now that we have enlightened you with the history of Enron and Arthur Andersen, it is easier to identify the parties that are most responsible for this crisis. So first up would be the executive of Enron themselves, which are Kenneth Lay, Jeffrey Skilling, and Andrew Fastow. They were all responsible for this crisis when they demonstrated huge earnings and elevated the stock price of Enron for their own benefit. These executives of Enron lost the confidence of stakeholders in the company, and the crisis of confidence spread when the misstatements emerged and were made clear to the public. The second party that is said to be responsible for this crisis would be the audit firm Arthur Andersen themselves. This is because Arthur Andersen did not present itself with the professionalism and responsibility that an audit firm should be. The confidence that the public had in the company was diminished when they realized that the firm had been covering up the financial misstatements of Enron, and they chose to ignore it in order to continue receiving loads of fees and payments from Enron. The public had felt betrayed by Arthur Andersen. And the final party that is held accountable for this crisis would be the SEC, also known as the US Securities and Exchange Commission. The government agency had allowed Enron to use market-to-market accounting practice that allowed the CEO of Enron to perform his Ponzi scheme legally, and which is why that led to the sudden collapse of Enron.
Three types of consulting services that audit firms have provided to their audit client in recent years and that indicate specific traits. So firstly is internal auditing should be conducted within a company instead of having an outside audit firm to perform the service. If an audit firm was hired, then it will present a threat to legitimacy of the internal audit. Secondly, an audit firm should not be designing accounting system for a firm while performing audit services to the same firm. It is too easy for the audit firm to alter the accounting system within a company. An auditor can fabricate the financial situation of a corporation and make it appear to be more profitable or more attractive to investors. And thirdly, an outside audit firm should not provide professional consulting and auditing service to a same company. Auditors involved in the dealing of a business are at risk for becoming subjective to the success of the organization. When an auditor is involved in such happening, they are not able to perform their duties as an external auditor to the best of their ability. Their opinions are subject to change based on biases.
Very good morning, doctor. My name is Nitya Prakash, son of Ganesan, and my matrix number is A174001. Question 3. Andersen's involvement in those decisions that violated any professional auditing standards. Yes, Andersen's involvement in the accounting and financial reporting decisions violated professional auditing standards. Andersen does not apply the generally accepted auditing standards, such as independence, in setting up and advising on special purpose entities SPEs, as well as day-to-day accounting decisions as evidenced by email correspondence. Andersen's auditors may have lost some degree of objectivity when they had to review those decisions as part of an audit. Secondly, planning and supervision. The auditor should have identified situations such as SPEs where Andersen was too involved in structuring deals and financial reporting. However, Andersen's accountants did not function as an effective check on the disclosure approach taken by the company, and this shows that Andersen failed to supervise its employees. Thirdly, reporting. Under generally accepted auditing standards, Andersen was obligated to issue a disclaimer of opinion if it could not reasonably maintain independence during the audit process. Undue influence from Enron's management, in addition to complacency at the local office level, should have triggered these concerns.
I will briefly describe the key requirements in professional auditing standards regarding the preparation and retention of audit work papers. Firstly, the auditor must state in the auditor's report whether the financial statements are presented according to GAAP. Secondly, the auditor must bring to light any instances in which the GAAP were not consistent during the current period. The third key requirement is when informative disclosures are inadequate, the auditor must give a statement regarding it on the report. Lastly, the auditor must state an opinion regarding the financial statements. If the auditor cannot state an opinion, this must be noted in the report. If any responsibility is taken in relation to the financial statements, it must also be stated in the auditor's report. Regarding the audit work papers, which party owns audit work papers? The client or the audit firm? The audit work papers actually belong to the auditing firm. The auditor does hold responsibility for the evidence and reports and is to make sure that the information is not misused in any way.
Next, I will explain about the idea to strengthen the independent audit rules. The first one is revise the rules related to the non-audit service that, if provided to an audit client, will impair an accounting firm's independence. The measure is supported as independence is the key in performing an audit. Secondly, required the auditor to report certain matter to the issuer audit committee, including critical accounting policy used by the issuer. This measure is supported as in many cases, the internal auditor need to have access to the information that external audit firms happen upon. The third one is required the issuer audit committee to approve all audit and non-audit service provided to the issuer by the auditor. This measure is supported as the audit committee should know beforehand what the auditor will providing for the company. The fourth one is require disclosure to investor of information related to audit and non-audit service provided by and fees paid to the auditor. The measure is supported as the cost of audit should be disclosed. An abnormal high audit fees is also an indicator of something doesn't smell right. The fifth one is established rule that an accounting firm will not be independent if certain members of management of that issue have been members of the accounting firm's audit engagement team within the 1 year period preceding the commencement of audit procedure. This measure is support as this allow the accounting and auditing team to remain separate in their powers.
The next question is there a significant shift or evolution over the past several decades in the concept of professionalism and as it relates to the public accounting discipline? The answer would be yes. As we can see from the cases that occurred in and around, there are likely situations that have resulted in huge changes in the process of auditing over the last few decades. Furthermore, with the tightening of governmental regulated norms and reforms, auditing and the professional seal associated with accounting have undergone a shift. Even so, despite the tightening governmental regulations, the rising ethical issues associated with the accounting profession are continuing to increase, which is a sad situation. However, the concept of professional accounting as well as the widespread frauds and scams associated with the accounting profession are both subject to the public criticism in various forms. Besides, when it comes to the concept of professionalism as they relate to the public accounting discipline, there are some factors have gone for a dramatic change all around, particularly the involvement of an independent governmental agency to review the audit process. Key factors in these evolutions are laws, regulations, and the implantation of GAAP and GAAS. And interestingly, auditing has gone a step further as regulations in this regard are also passed with necessary reforms in order to propagate an image of the professional concepts as they relate to the accounting discipline. The last question is, should quarterly financial statements to be audited? The answer would be the Enron Corporation case study clearly states that the SEC does not require public companies to have their quarterly financial statement audited. For the audit firms solo concern, their audit responsibility is limited to the scope defined, such that whether or not a quarterly financial statement is required is purely depends on the client's preference. However, whether it is a public company or a private one, quarterly statements are one of the most main avenue for auditors to review as well as the regulated agencies to consider the pros and cons of the financial statement. As a result, when audits are performed, restatements can be drawn and adjusted, and also it does not compromise corporate ethics also. By auditing quarterly financial statements, it is very likely that ethics will be prioritized. Most of the time, even the smallest frauds and manipulations can be addressed logically in order to avoid losses for all the parties involved in the audit client as well as for the sake of a professional auditing profession and accounting discipline itself. Hence, I believe that
It is the responsibility of an auditor to examine quarterly statements during the audit process. An auditor should always be skepticism when performing an audit service to any client.
For the summary of Enron case, the auditor is in charge of assessing the risk of material fraud. Enron was a rapidly growing company with numerous startup projects such as energy wholesale services and Enron's broadband services that require large sum of money to success. Enron management believed they were only trying to grow the company and increase their stock price by misrepresenting their financial statement, which could lead to fraud. Andersen, involved in Enron accounting and financial reporting decision, violate professional auditing standards that require the auditor to be independent. The lack of independence of the team auditing Enron can be derived from the fact that Andersen was providing consulting services as well as auditing services to Enron, with consulting work accounting for more 15% of the total yearly revenue received from Enron. The Enron team audited intentional misapplication of accounting principles relating to the classification, presentation, and disclosure of financial statements. This accounting method causes financial statements to be materially misstated while also significantly increasing the earning-based compensation of Enron executives. Enron had investment in company not SPE that it consolidated, but when the investment began to show losses, they were transferred to SPE so that it will not to reflect the losses on the financial statement. Andersen audit team in charge of Enron auditing failed to provide an unbiased opinion on the effectiveness of the system of internal control over financial reporting. After Enron and other fraud scandals, the self-oversight of public accounting firm to an independent oversight accounting firm auditing public companies by government bodies such as the PCAOB. The SEC has required public companies to have their quarterly financial statement audited before filing of their quarterly report. Therefore, audit firm will need to follow all the audit standards set out, from establishing and understanding with the client to performing analytical procedure, inquiry and other review procedure to prepare an audit report on the revenue on interim financial information. Investors will have faith in the company financial information if the financial account have been truly audited.